evacuated. It's happening. I can't believe it, but we're locked into it. 50 minutes and counting. Christ, I just can't take it. I can't fucking take it. I'm sorry, Dad. I shouldn't swear. I'm sorry, but this is it. This is really it. This is the big one. Thor Arthur 66 ZZD. You know, like I told you what would happen if it ever came down? Well, it is. We don't know why. I mean, why would we, huh? It's for real, Dad. It's no drill. We shoot our wad in 50 minutes. They're gonna pick us up in 5 or 10, and you can get it back in an hour, and 10, maybe 75 minutes.
What exactly are you talking about?
I'm talking about nuclear fucking war.
Who is this?
This morning on the extent of a cyber attack on U.S. federal agencies, officials now believe hackers targeted at least a half dozen government agencies, including the Department of Energy that oversees our nuclear weapons stockpile.
What I want to talk about is what are what I call the Chinese breadcrumbs, the nuclear breadcrumbs, which would give you an idea of what they're up to. We're told repeatedly within the disarmament literature is the Chinese keep their nuclear warheads separate from their ballistic missiles, their bombers, and their submarines, which would indicate that they have no intent of launching these things first. But then again, they would only launch them after a long period of time after being attacked. But the problem is you don't build submarines and send them to sea if they have no warheads on the missiles. And one of the things that Phil Carber and I, when we were looking at the Chinese underground tunnels, where they built 3,000 kilometers of tunnels in which they hid their ballistic missiles, we tried to figure out and were successful in finding out how much would it cost if we did that, or if we hired the Chinese. What's interesting is the Israelis hired a group of Chinese from the 21st Artillery, which built these tunnels, and they hired them to do some tunneling and got a cost. And it figured when you do the numbers, it would have cost, the Chinese would have charged to do it about 65 to 70 billion dollars. You don't spend 65 to 70 billion dollars, which is the equivalent of basically twice our annual budget on nuclear deterrence that we in the United States spend. You don't spend that kind of money if you're in a minimal deterrent, solely retaliatory capability. Plus, what's interesting, the launch pads outside the tunneling, which was identified through Google Maps, is exactly the kilometers from these areas in China to 3 military bases in the United States of America called Maelstrom, Minot, and F.E. Warren. Why would the Chinese target our ICBM Minuteman III bases if they have a policy of simply going after our cities in the city busting, or what is known as a counter-value deterrent policy? The next thing is China is developing a complete triad, which is quite interesting. And when you look at the panoply of number of missiles they're building, mobile and fixed land-based ICBMs, strategic bombers, and submarines, they're going for the full Monty with respect to nuclear capability. So that's a far cry from a minimal deterrent and only a city busting capability. Now, what does this mean for Chinese nuclear strategy? One pundit once said that all of us who are looking at Chinese nuclear strategy and the nuclear beans, as I call them, we're debating among ourselves because the Chinese don't say a lot. But recently, what's fascinating is the Chinese have instead revealed some of what their policies are. And that is they're moving towards what I consider a Putin-like strategy of escalate to win in a regional crisis, about threatening the use of nuclear weapons early, using coercion and blackmail to get what they want. This is obvious when you read some of their fairly extensive comments about if Taiwan gets off the reservation, and they say they reserve the right to use nuclear weapons first against Taiwan and to incorporate Taiwan by force into the Chinese mainland. And this is also kind of a very, very important point because it mirrors Putin's argument with respect to the Baltics and countries in Eastern Europe, that he has a right to incorporate them into a new Russian empire, so to speak. And this does not mean that the Chinese have not also dramatically expanded their conventional capability. And Recently, I saw there's an article written about, oh, this is China just simply wants to prevent the United States from dominating a particular area. Disagree. What China is looking to do is preventing the United States from coming to the defense of our allies in Korea or Japan or Taiwan or in the Middle East, where the Chinese and Russians, as my friend Dr. Stephen Blank has pointed out, have continued to cooperate quite extensively in the military area. The Chinese want to prevent us from coming to the defense of our allies and our friends. They call that deterrence. Deterrence in most Americans' mind, meaning preventing someone from attacking you in the first place. It doesn't mean preventing you from coming to the defense of your friends that have been attacked in the first place by the Chinese. So the Chinese turn upside down by 360 degrees the whole notion of deterrence and what nuclear weapons are for, which are to deter an attack in the first place, as opposed to an umbrella under which the Chinese feel they could safely attack our allies, whether it's Taiwan or South Korea or Japan, without fear of retribution. Now, the issue then is, what would the Chinese might be up to that we have to worry about? Here again, these are excursions which could happen. I think we need to look at it seriously. One is that the Chinese recently, with respect to the global pandemic, have said that the United States is too weak to be a leader of the free world. They've doubled down on the idea that globalism is great and it's the United States system that doesn't work. Zachariah, one of the panda huggers in this country, has laid out that philosophy. But another thing that's quite interesting is a leaked memo from the Chinese Politburo, and again, this is a supposed memo, written by a member, says that when the United States finds out what the Chinese have done with respect to releasing the pandemic virus on us by not preventing it from leaving Wuhan, once they find out about this, there will be a military conflict, predicts this person. So then the question is, you have to look at that in the context of the new Chinese military capability, both conventional and nuclear. And this raises the next point is, do the Chinese move up their planned hegemonic strategy? Because the timeline, according to Mike Pillsbury, was that in 2048, the 100th anniversary of the Chinese taking over of the mainland, they would declare themselves to be the leader of the free world, the leader of the world militarily and economically and politically. Are they going to move that timetable up because they think we are distracted by the coronavirus, as is other countries being distracted? And will they use the nuclear forces they have now and the conventional forces they have now in moving toward a more reckless or less risk-averse foreign and security policy, which worries me, and I think we have to take seriously. So in that context, I think I would look at the Chinese nuclear strategy as getting closer to that of Mr. Putin and the Russians. It is certainly not the minimalist, retaliatory-only city-busting policy which we have grown accustomed to thinking. When you look at the comments by the disarmament community here in America, this is a much more serious threat than we have seen before.
Secured. Should I trace?
Listen, it's probably a felony to joke around on the phone like this.
Who are you?
Who am I? Listen, I'm just a guy who picked up the phone. I mean, I don't know if this is a wrong phone number or a joke or what. What happened to Chip? He was just joking, right?
Forget everything you just heard and go back to sleep.